We've been taught to fear dragons and magical serpents, but once they moved beside goddesses. In most myths, they appear as enemies, forces of chaos standing in the hero's path. But that version of the story came later. In older traditions, these scaled beasts weren't monsters. They were guardians, bound to the earth or sky, often appearing with women who held a different kind of power. These women didn't fight for control. Their strength came from presence, through devotion, rhythm, and the wisdom to face what others avoided. In this video, we explore the goddesses and spirits who lived in harmony with dragons and serpents. Their stories speak to a quieter kind of strength, one rooted in balance, not dominance. You're watching Vortex Mythology. If you enjoy these videos, please do like and subscribe. We really appreciate the support. The stories, mythologies, and folklores we explore in these videos are rich, layered, and deeply symbolic. They've evolved across time, cultures, and interpretations, and often contain ambiguities, even contradictions, and multiple meanings. But this isn't about what's right or wrong. It's about approaching these traditions with curiosity, openness, and historical context. The beauty often lies in the mystery, and the value is in the discussion that they inspire. Let's begin. Hygieia was a goddess of health, purification, and balance. While her father Asclepius was more closely tied to active healing, Hygieia's domain focused on prevention and care. Her rituals were practiced in sanctuaries across the Greek world, where people sought restoration through cleanliness and sacred sleep. One of her most common symbols is a serpent drinking from a shallow bowl in her hand. In the ancient world, serpents were associated with renewal, rebirth, and the deep knowledge that came from the earth. They appeared in healing temples, not as threats, but as sacred presences. Hygieia's relationship with the serpent reflected her understanding of unseen forces, cycles of decay and renewal that shaped health. Her calm posture and quiet power stood beside a creature that was often misunderstood. From health, we move on to the origin of the land itself. Gaia represents the earth in its earliest form. She was not born from other gods, but existed as the base of everything: soil, stone, and breath. In early Greek cosmology, she emerged after chaos and gave shape to the world by producing mountains, seas, and sky. Gaia also gave birth to beings that threatened the Olympian gods. From her womb came the Gigantes, giants with serpent tails, and Typhon, a hurricane-bodied dragon whose breath scorched gods. These weren't merely abominations. They were Gaia's pulse in wild form. The same force that grew trees and shattered mountains. Not mistakes, not punishments, just earth, uncontained. In Gaia's myth, dragons and serpents are the wild edge of nature that refuses to be tamed. Her story frames the dragon as part of the living world that creates and destroys in an equal measure. Wiedget was a cobra goddess of Lower Egypt, closely tied to royalty, protection, and divine legitimacy. Her symbol, the rearing serpent known as the uraeus, appeared on the crowns of pharaohs. It wasn't simply decorative. It signified the presence of Wiedget herself, watching and ready to defend. She was believed to strike down threats with fire, especially in defense of the ruler and sacred spaces. Temple inscriptions described her as the eye of the gods, sometimes paired with the solar disk to reinforce her cosmic role. Wiedget's form, coiled, silent, communicated authority. The serpent in her mythology was something the gods placed at the head of a king. In Egypt, divine power came not just from heaven, but from the edge of the desert where the cobra kept watch. Athena is often remembered as the goddess of reason and war, but her symbols point to something older. The shield she carried, the aegis, was bordered with serpents and bore the head of Medusa. These were more than just battle emblems. They were links to ancient chthonic forces tied to prophecy and danger. The ground beneath Athena's worship wasn't always hers. Delphi, one of the most sacred sites in Greece, originally belonged to the serpent Python. Long before Apollo took control of the oracle, the site was sacred to Earth-centered rites. Athena's legacy blends intellect with power drawn from earlier traditions. The serpent remained part of her image because it couldn't be erased. It came from the soil, the underworld, and the memory of those who practiced divination before the Olympians. Tiamat appears in one of the earliest recorded myths from Mesopotamia. She is the ocean before shape. Her waters held the first gods, whom she created alongside her consort Apsu. When Apsu was killed, she responded with extreme fury, giving rise to monstrous beings, many of them serpentine or storm-like. In the Enuma Elish, Tiamat takes on a vast and terrifying form. The god Marduk defeats her in battle and uses her body to construct the structure of the world, the heavens, the sea, the land. Her role in myth is often framed as a threat, but everything begins and ends in her. The cosmos itself comes from her remains. She is the sea that held everything before it had a name, and her presence lingers in the very elements shaped from her destruction. Nuwa is known in Chinese mythology as a creator goddess who restored order after a cosmic disaster. When the heavens cracked and floods swallowed the land, it was Nuwa who acted. She melted 5 colored stones and sealed the sky. She rebuilt the broken order, piece by piece, restoring the bond between earth and heaven. Rivers began to flow again. The world became livable. In many depictions, Nuwa's form is serpentine, her lower body coiling like a dragon. But the dragon here isn't a creature of fear. It's a symbol of resilience, of steady motion in the face of collapse. Melusine is a figure from French and German folklore associated with rivers, springs, and ancestral power. Her legend often begins with a promise. She marries a mortal man who must never watch her during her private time. He agrees, but later breaks that vow. When he sees her bathing, her true form is revealed, part woman, part serpent or dragon. After the betrayal, she vanishes. Some say she flew, others say she returned to the water. Her children, according to some versions, went on to found noble bloodlines. Melusine's connection to the dragon isn't about dominance. It marks her as belonging to a different world, one governed by mystery, limits, and sacred oaths. She doesn't lose control of her power. She removes it from those who don't understand it. In the north, another figure shaped the land by walking through its storms. Cailleach is an ancient figure in Celtic mythology. She appears as a powerful old woman who governs winter, mountains, and the wild terrain of Scotland and Ireland. Her presence is felt in storm winds and early snow. She swings her staff through storm winds, cracking the lands into cliffs and cooling snow from sleeping skies. Although she's not always linked directly with dragons, she is associated with the Behir, a serpent-like creature of lightning that lives in caves and appears during thunderstorms. These beings reflect the raw forces Cailleach calls upon. Some say the Behir isn't separate from her. It is her. Lightning given shape. Winter made flesh. She walks the land when life retreats. Her season brings no fruit, but it brings return. The stories surrounding her are not about mercy or conflict. They describe the turning of cycles that shape the earth. Far from mountain storms, in the myths of Greece, 2 women practice power through ritual and fire. Medea appears in Greek myth as a priestess of Hecate and a figure of deep magical knowledge. Her story is marked by betrayal, escape, and transformation. In one myth, When she leaves Corinth, she travels in a chariot pulled by dragons. These creatures don't appear as a challenge. They move at her side as part of her ritual power. Hecate, the goddess Medea serves, is tied to crossroads, shadowed places, and boundary lines between life and death. She is often shown with torches and serpents, and is called upon in protective spells and night rituals. In their myths, dragons and serpents are not opponents. They're part of the landscape that magic travels through. Both women act with full knowledge of risk. Their movement is precise, and their strength lies in what they refuse to abandon. Another figure, far from ritual and fire, was remembered through silence and altered memory. Mary Magdalene's story has always been shaped by what others choose to forget. In the Gospels, she stays at the cross when others flee. She's the first to find the tomb empty. And in the texts the church buried, like the Gospel of Mary, she speaks with calm authority, offering clarity when the disciples argue in fear. Be sure to check out our recent look at Mary Magdalene and the dragon, and why their relationship terrified the church. In one version of her legend, Mary leaves Jerusalem behind and travels by boat to southern France. She spends her final years in a cave, high in the mountains above Provence. The locals say she lived in silence, that she wept each day, that mist would rise from the rocks like breath. Some called it the breath of a dragon. Here, the dragon wasn't something she faced, but it was the warmth that lingered in silence, the kind of presence that stays even when no one speaks of it. Mary didn't need to raise her voice. Her strength was in staying when others left, in carrying what couldn't be seen, and in holding on to what others forgot. She didn't fight the dragon, she breathed with it. And long after the story faded, something of her remained, quiet but unshaken. These stories don't end the way we're used to. The scaled beasts are not slain. The goddess doesn't disappear. Power stays close to the ground, quiet, steady, and fully aware of itself. If these stories resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. We explore the myths that shape memory, ritual, and belief. And tell us in the comments, whose story felt the most alive to you? Until next time, keep listening. The oldest truths are never silent.